Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their businesses. I'm your host, Laura Skinner, and in each episode, we'll uncover the stories behind successful startups, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future expansion. Today, we're excited to have Jim, the co-founder of the Sage House. Jim will be sharing more about his founding story and, of course, giving us a glimpse into their plans for future growth. So let's jump right in, Jim, and welcome to Founders Future.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be really fun.
You're so welcome. Honestly, Jim, you're the easiest person. It's just
Ha!
fun. I love it.
Well, that's good. Maybe that's not a successful thing, but yeah, I feel good
Oh, it
about it.
is. Trust me, it is. So take us back to the beginning. Obviously, what inspired you to start? And for the listener, what do you solve within the marketplace?
Yeah, I've been in the fitness world for a very long time and the finance world for a very long time. I was a collegiate athlete, loved training, loved being a part of sports. I was a Penn State tennis player. I left school and went to work for a
Oh,
hedge fund.
tennis.
Oh yeah.
Big tennis
And now
fan.
it's pickleball and padel and you name it. But so I leave school and I go work for a hedge fund. And I was a commodities trader for a number of years. And I cut my chops as Katrina went through the Gulf, hurricane, the 2008 financial collapse. And so I got a real education about the finance markets. Um, and in 2010, I just really felt kind of pulled back to the fitness world. And so, of all things, I went and started opening up CrossFit gyms because I just loved the ridiculousness of it and the aggressiveness of it, and I could just open a business and run. So I did that
Love
for a
it.
number of years. I sold my gyms in 2014. I caught the literal asymmetric upswing of CrossFit, if I'm being frank. And then I
Nice.
went and worked for a company called OPEX. They were Optimum Performance Training, did coaching education, facility licensing. Kind of as I was leaving, they started to work on a piece of technology that's now what's called CoachRx. And I ran that company for a number of years. I left there in 2020 and created what is today called the Sage House. And a big thing that I tried to marry together was fitness, finance, and behavior. And so I
Not my
created a,
three favorite things.
right, yeah, exactly, right. And so the Sage House is not a fund, it's a holding company. And my play there, and my business partner, Jason Crow, is completely on board for this, is a very long-term vehicle. And we wanted a lot of malleability within this, and we wanted to not have to just perpetually raise new funds. And so we built a
Cool.
holdco model, and we put a consulting business around it. And we're very kind of particular about the consulting gigs that we take, but um, we've made about 30 investments into the fitness and wellness space. They're all early stage investments, and so we are sort of very in tune with what's happening in fitness and wellness right now. And because of the connection to coaching and brick and mortar gyms, we kind of have a very good pulse on what's happening there. So we've done that for, I mean, I've done that for more than 4 years, but let's call it going on 3 years full time, Sage House up and running. And one of the plays, this is sort of our malleability within the Sage House, is a play called Proof 3. And that was our attempt to go invest in what we thought was going to be a good strength and, let's just call it strength and longevity concept. We didn't find one that made sense to us, so we just built it. And so Proof 3 today is a kind of an amalgamation of brick and mortar gyms. We launched our first in Scottsdale, Arizona, so that's getting up and running.
That's where our HQ is. I literally got back from Scottsdale in December and thought it was the best place on earth.
Yeah, no, well, next time you go check out Proof 3. And then we acquired two remote coaching companies and merged them together under Proof 3. We're looking at two more acquisitions right now. And we are playing in the brick and mortar plus coaching game while we built all the underlying software to run it. And so we have a really cool assessment platform. We have a very cool class coaching platform. And we kind of are coming at this from the angle of how do we best serve the stakeholders, which typically the coach gets left out, the GM gets left out. If you're doing any kind of a franchise or license model, often the licensee or the franchisee gets left out. And so we're just kind of making a play in that by saying we think we can build the underlying software to make that much, much easier and much more beneficial. And we'll see how it goes, Laura.
Can I ask you a selfish question?
Of course.
It's probably not going to be relevant for anyone listening to this podcast, but are you like, are you into like the high rock space or have heard much about high rock?
I know a lot about High Rocks. I've had the privilege of speaking to some of their executives on different projects and working with different teams. Um, that is an awesome, awesome,
I am
yeah,
totally addicted. Like literally go to every race, train for it every day. Like it's actually like a cult here in the UK. It
yeah,
is crazy. Like
yeah.
every does high rock. So it feels very CrossFit, just CrossFit 2.0 is like the hype around it, whenever that was all so big. So that's just interesting because a lot of I
Good.
work say 98% of this company is American. The boys don't have a clue what I say when I'm just at High Rocks and they're all like, "You're where?" And I'm like, "How has it not got over to America?"
Well, it's coming, and it's coming in a serious way. High Rocks is going to be big in the United States. There's no doubt about it. I mean, sorry, don't let me go down this rabbit hole in a too deep of a way. You and I could probably do 4 hours on High Rocks, but um, High Rocks did certain things that CrossFit failed to do. And the
Yeah,
number one thing, in my opinion, is they built a simple, duplicatable framework for events.
yeah. It's
CrossFit
ridiculous.
is really complicated to run events for. High Rocks is the opposite. And so you slap really fun content around it. You slap a simple enough format that literally everybody doing fitness can accomplish,
Yeah.
even though the best people clearly are significantly better. And you put a lot of aggressive, business tactics underneath it, and they're growing like a weed around the world.
It's crazy. So just going back I love it, but just going back to your business, and this is for our listeners, right? Because on this podcast, we basically love to speak to founders about go-to markets, the sales and marketing gaps, constraints, how they solve them, etc. So obviously, what you're doing is awesome. I have a huge passion for it. Like I could sit here and talk to you all day. I just know it. Where have been or where are your current go-to-market constraints that you're like, okay, we need to double down on this over the next couple of months? Like, where are you prioritizing your time when it comes to those sales and marketing efforts?
So keep in mind, I am not the I'm not the specific person selling people today, and I'm also not the specific person doing our marketing.
Mhm.
I work very closely with those people, so I have a very good idea of where the constraints are, but it's just important for people to know I'm not on the phone closing people or, running people through pipelines. Um, our constraints depends on the business. So if we're talking about online coaching of fitness, the constraint is that there's a whole lot of nonsense. The education is um, required for what our coaches do because our coaches are very high level coaches and have coached online for a very long time, which, I mean, as you know, is just so different than coaching in person. And it also is a very different consumer who works well in an online environment.
Right.
When we first acquired those businesses, there wasn't a content engine. There's now a content engine, but that content engine needs to speak more effectively on the different platforms to different end consumers who would be the right fits for our online business. Um, and then within that, it's the same issues, right? Like how good are paid ads? Well, not great if you don't have a content engine around them, if you don't have a great sales, structure in place, et cetera. Um, if we're talking about the brick and mortar business, the biggest constraint for us is that we are a new concept. So we put a pre-sale plan in place that probably incorrectly assumed that people would understand who we were, and that failed, right? Because people didn't know our brand. Nobody was walking into the gym until they could take a class. Literally nobody. And so once we opened, then we had a much better understanding of what was required for us to build any sort of a funnel, let alone a pre-sale funnel. So we would anticipate that gym number 2, gym number 3, et cetera, will be easier, but
Makes sense.
we overestimated how easy it would be to get somebody from not knowing our brand to buying a membership.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? I was literally sat at the gym having this conversation this morning about how they scale this business because they obviously know, basically in closers, like I said to you offline, we obviously scale so many different offers. And one of the main markers we actually scale is fitness offers through paid ads, and we leverage the short form funnel ourselves. And that's how we scaled so aggressively. But I was like talking to them about scaling like brick and mortar, and I was like, guys, this is not my industry. I know you think I can help, but like I was just like trying to riff with them ideas on how they can scale. And it's more on that on that side, like nutrition, coaching, all that kind of stuff that you can really scale, and it doesn't cap your time, right? And the fulfillment's not just crazy.
Yeah, it's an interesting, let's just call it philosophical to be dramatic question, because anybody can be an online coach today. Literally anybody. They
Just
slap
wild
up,
in America.
yeah, you slap up a Go High level page and you're like, I'm an online coach and you should buy from me. And the end consumer doesn't really know the difference. And that's
Sure.
fair. Welcome to capitalism, whatever you want to call it. But in brick and mortar, you've got a big ass operating expense structure underneath you. And so it reduces the number of entrants, although it's pretty saturated in most places. Um, and makes the brand, it requires the brand to be significantly stronger, especially in a world where the same tired ads are being seen 50 different ways by the same consumer. So, to your point on short form content, you have to be interesting in your own unique way if you intend to make client acquisition easier over time, which to me is that's the constraint most brick and mortars will face, is that they don't make it easier over time. It's the same rolling the boulder up the hill.
So when you speak to paid ads, have you had like, are they just not working that effectively for you?
They go in and out. So,
Really?
yep. Yeah. Now, keep in mind that's I'm very open to maybe we're not doing it the right way.
No,
But
no, I'm not saying that. I'm interested into why, because like what would you put that behind?
are we talking about why it's not always working? Is that the question?
Yeah,
Or,
yeah, like where do you think the
yeah.
gap is? Because obviously, like in my world or in my eyes, paid ads gives you predictability, whereas like outbound referrals network is great, but you can't really scale off it. It's not predictable and it's just time
Yep.
consuming. Whereas like paid ads, like you pull the lever and you know exactly what's coming out. So I'm just interested in that lack of predictability that you just mentioned.
Well, this is not my business, it's yours. So I'm giving my outside perspective on it.
Yeah.
Um, I find that ads are far less consistent than most marketing agencies would lead people to believe.
Oh yeah, I
So,
mean the
yeah, so
over.
you have to create a lot of content and test a lot of content often, which most small businesses don't or can't do. And from the testing, most of the low cost paid ads, let's call them agencies, they aren't really paying attention enough. They're just placing the ads. And so that business has no real concept of what's working or not. They don't have the infrastructure, if that's the word, to scale up the amount of content that they're doing. So they never find the evergreen stuff that works better. And then for a lot of companies, they allocate what, 2 or 3 months worth of funds to trying this out. They vastly under appreciate the complexity of doing this, and then 2 months in, it's not working, and they stop, and it's
Yeah.
over.
But for you guys, are you having like is it going up and down within the offer of the coaching?
Yeah, and we're seeing that with let's call it a dozen different brands outside of us, because I always like to have a finger on the pulse of how it's working a bit more across the industry. And what I'm seeing, across those 12, it's not 1,000, but it's 12, is that the ad, or excuse me, the lead cost is all over the place for the past 6 months, like all over the place, where these offers are working, and then a month later they're triple the lead
Yeah, you've got to
cost,
be
and then those
agile.
off, yeah. And so my
What?
my sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, where are you placing them?
Primarily Instagram and Meta. We are doing Google ads. That's more of a test run for us because we're early in this. Um, we have not done anything around TikTok or LinkedIn ads yet.
And with your Instagram ads, do you have like a VSL set up?
I don't even
Sorry,
know what VSL means.
the video sales letter.
Not, I don't think not what you would consider a traditional uh, set up like that. No.
Yeah, because what we see, and this is why I think we cracked the code. We're almost like a research development at this company at this point because we've got over 4,000 customers that we've scaled. But with these offers, particularly fitness is huge. But you know what's really like I've like really huge at the minute is like functional health and like ADHD and all of this. This has just like come out of nowhere. These coaches that are like not like doctor coaches, but like functional coaches. It's a bit odd. It's just like, do you have qualifications to be doing this? But in terms of whenever I hear people say that they have, I don't know, issues with ads or whatever, and it's cool because you've got a data pool of 12, right? Which is great. So you're getting feedback from the market. But it typically is like two reasons. A, they're hosted on a platform where their customers aren't, or they're not in front of their actual customers. But B, a lot of the time I hear like, yeah, we're getting like loads of clicks and blah, 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 but it's not converting. And the reason it's not converting is so many people like try to run a funnel like without VSLs, where you really need to nurture the lead and pre-qualify them into what they're going to buy or into booking a call with you or into something like that. So the more frictional that you can make the funnel, which is against human instinct, right? But the more frictional you can make that, but also inadvertently makes it more compelling. So VSL is definitely like, I guess it's just like a cheat code. It's just the way you script it though. People then say they've got a VSL and then their conversions are low. And I'm like, yeah, because you've scripted it completely wrong.
Yeah, and I think again, it's another one of those areas where I see it work for some and not for others. And certain types of businesses seem to sell certain offers better than others, right? Even in the fitness business, it doesn't seem like a complicated one, but are you selling free class, multiple free classes, free trial, paid trial, um, uh, let's call it a problem solving experience or a challenge format. You know, there's 50 different things that you could attempt to sell the market. And I think that kind of goes back to what's the brand you're trying to run, what's the audience you're trying to serve, et cetera. I just think that people underappreciate the nuance of that. I'm not saying you guys, I'm just saying the market itself or people like me underappreciate the nuance of really getting that right at scale.
100%. And it's so hard to get right at scale, which is kind of why we exist. But what's interesting, what you said, we are so off like the common questions on this podcast, but I love it. What you said earlier was really interesting about marketing agencies because genuinely, like, my biggest blocker, and I have like 8 warm inbound leads every single day on my calendar, right? But my biggest blocker is selling against what the market is over promised and under delivered. So you've got all of these marketing agencies that say they can do X, Y, and Z, which just isn't true. And also outsourcing your ads or outsourcing anything like that just doesn't work. Like, why would anyone outsource the lifeblood of their business? But that's what I sell against. Like genuinely, even though we've got Tony Robbins, even though we've got all of these fitness offers or we've done X, Y, and Z, people are so scarred from being burnt in the past or reading all of this like bashing of marketing agencies that's genuinely like what I have to sell against. It's not even like a competitor because no one is where we're at or can do what we can do, but it's honestly
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I've been in, I mean, we have a lot of portfolio companies. We've seen a lot of agencies. Um, I've seen companies who low promise perform, low promise don't perform, high promise don't perform, high promise perform, and it's just it's just more factors than any marketing agency has ever presented to me, right? Like I've never received a proposal that um, underperformed expectations, not once, and I've probably seen 300 proposals, literally 0 times.
Isn't it wild?
Right? So, and you know, some of those agencies may have had plenty of success in other businesses, but it's like, and it can't be me directly because I'm just watching this a lot of times, you know, with portfolio companies.
100%.
Um, you know, it certainly can be me in the stuff that I'm running, but it can't always be me. And so I think that there's a lot of nuance around the founder understanding what they really need to solve for and finding the agency that solves for that. And most founders don't get the first part right.
So fun. Like you should almost come and sell for closers because our number one is like packaging and positioning. And I'm speaking to people, I'm like, people will run into paid ads and they'll think they want to target X person. They think they can say Y. it's such a hyper complex exercise to work out, and we call it the 3S formula, and that is literally the sole reason we scaled. Everyone says we scaled through paid ads and whatever, but honestly, it was the ability to get in front of the right people and actually speak to those people down to each word. So we
Yeah.
run with our clients at the 3S formula where we're getting so specific on each area and we're doubling down on one niche that it's impossible to fail. But people will either go too broad or their messaging will just not be compelling.
Yeah, well, it's possible to fail. Let's at least put that on the table. But if you can understand why there would be a failure, that's important.
Yeah,
And that's
iterate,
that's
right?
usually not what I see from marketers. I don't usually see this is what could go wrong and what we need to get out in front of. I just see here's our playbook, implement this so that we can keep scaling,
Yeah.
right? And then whether the founder doesn't know how or there's not a good enough feedback loop of during the build or during the execution of the play, I just don't typically see a strong enough tactical execution of what was presented.
Yeah. No, for sure, 100%. So just taking it back to you guys, where are the goals? Like, where do you want to take this? What's your priorities over the coming months?
Yeah, I mean, on the gyms, we intend to have hundreds of them. So we've got real goals. Today, we would like to scale them corporately at some point if we are ridiculously buttoned up. Maybe we look at franchising, but I'm talking like seriously buttoned up.
For sure.
Um, the online side, I want to grow linearly, and that's just because I believe that business is a linear relationship-based business. It doesn't mean that the slope can't change, right? But I don't believe that that is an asymmetric business, at least not the way that we are running online coaching, and that works for us, you know. So we're not attempting to try to take that parabolic. But we are also, you know, we got a couple acquisitions that I can't, you know, talk about publicly that we're looking at right now, and then we fully intend to roll out our software into brick and mortar facilities. And so, you know, we're going to need pipelines for all of those things.
I love it so much. So just before we wrap, because this has been super inspiring, based on your journey, which I just love everything that you like embody, I just have a passion for. Where have been your key lessons learned or key takeaways that you could share with our listeners based on the journey?
Well, let's stay with the idea of who's probably listening to this. It's probably founders who are trying to scale up some sort of a concept. Um, and remember, my perspective is I've done the operator side and the investor side, so I have an interesting perspective on it, I suppose. You you need to align the resources to the constraints.
Yeah.
And I've certainly been guilty of this hundreds of times, but it's very easy to misunderstand the constraint
100%.
or not allocate resources effectively to the constraint. Now, you and I could talk about the millions of tree branches that come off of that statement, so I understand I just made a gray statement. But if you get to the principles of it, it usually comes down to that. So if you're a tech company, oftentimes you will misinterpret why your product actually doesn't have product market fit. And so you will build the wrong features, or you will sell the wrong consumer or business. If you are a coaching business, often people build unscalable models. And so scaling it up is not possible if you have an unscalable model. And then on the more sales and marketing side, I typically see, and again, we're guilty of this in certain ways, I typically see people trying to do too much
Yeah.
and not doing anything very well. And so, to your point, paid ads to me is a must channel. You have to have some version of a paid ad strategy because if you solve it enough, it is consistent lead flow.
Yeah.
But you can't have it if your sales system sucks, if you don't follow up with people, if you have a product that doesn't deserve product market fit. And
True.
so I just come back to the concept that most people don't understand the real constraint or don't put the right resources to solving that constraint.
Yeah, I love how you split it up into those three sections because it's just so valuable, right? And it's just so true. And it always comes back to the constraint. And you are right, loads of these coaching offers are not scalable. And the amount of times I'm speaking to people that they are trying to scale themselves, I'm like, you need to restructure this whole entire offer to enable this
Yeah.
to scale.
Well, and
Um,
let's also have a conversation about what scale means,
yeah,
because I look at scale as a 1 billion-dollar company, right? Like that's a very different
for sure.
version of scale than most single operator online or in-person fitness companies. But I would argue that or some of the publicly visible scaled fitness companies haven't scaled.
Yeah, that's very true.
So I'll leave it at that. But looks can be deceiving in terms of how effectively something is scaling if you're throwing millions and millions of investor dollars at something.
100%. 100%. Honestly, I love it. So that does wrap up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. I want to thank Jim for sharing his incredible journey and insights with us today. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, do not forget to subscribe to Founders Future via wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find more resources and insights at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their sales through world-class marketing systems. We look forward to seeing you in the next one.